Welcome to the opening ceremony for the Inclusivity Game Jam, brought to you by Backtrace. I am Renee Gittins, the Executive Director of the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association, and I am so excited to be collaborating with Backtrace to bring you this wonderful event. Backtrace is all about creating better game experiences. And for this game jam, our goal is to celebrate inclusivity and encourage teams to create inspiring projects in just 48 hours. And, of course, the winner of the game jam will receive a PlayStation 5 console. Games themselves are a rich, expansive medium that allows players to explore the possibilities of realms and realities. Diversity in these stories, mechanics, and environments allows players to become enriched and inspired by the games and the stories within them. Inclusive game design empowers players who are often underrepresented and shows the presence and perspectives of other groups that we can value. We have chosen inclusivity as the main goal for this game jam to encourage us all to reflect on the role that we have in making the world more welcoming for all. Today, we will dive deeper into inclusivity with Backtrace and discuss the power of diversity. Then, we'll announce the themes for this game jam. I can't wait to hear them. We will then be joined by two wonderful partners for talks about diversity and inclusivity from both a technical community management perspective and a human resources and management perspective. And finally, we'll open up for a brief live Q&A session to answer any questions that you may have about these topics or about the game jam itself. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you of the rules for this. So you can work alone or in teams up to 5, but everyone who participates has to be 18 years old or older. You have to have your game playable on PC or web browser with Backtrace's error reporting integrated. It only takes a few minutes, and you can find the details on how to do that on the Game Jam page. And finally, your game must be started and completed within the Game Jam's official time period. Now, I will turn us back over to Backtrace to hear more about inclusivity and its importance to all of us.
Welcome everyone. My name is Jason Davis, and I'm the VP of Product Management at Backtrace. At Backtrace, we provide tools to help game developers create great game experiences. Today, our flagship product focuses on detecting and resolving the crashes, errors, issues, and bugs that cause problems for your players. I'll talk a bit more about that later. But for now, I want to thank you all for joining our game jam and choosing to participate today, and welcome you. Our goal in hosting the Game Jam is to celebrate inclusivity. At Backtrace, inclusivity is one of our core values. To us, it means that that we include people of all cultures, religions, sexual orientations, and people with special needs. It means being respectful of others' ideas and opinions, creating solutions that are accessible to all, and providing a way to show underrepresented viewpoints and perspectives that can be felt when delivering a product or a game. When I personally think about inclusivity in games, I think about incorporating these different perspectives into the game. Diversity in the stories that games tell, the environments that they depict, and even the mechanics that they use. They allow players to become enriched and inspired with an experience from a different viewpoint or different perspective than they might be used to. So we've chosen inclusivity as a goal for the Game Jam to encourage us all to reflect on the diversity in our global community. I encourage you to think about diversity as you form your teams and plan for your games today at this Game Jam. And now for the theme of our Game Jam. The theme for this weekend's Game Jam is Find It, Fix It. So as I mentioned earlier, Backtrace provides a solution for game devs to find errors in their games and facilitate the process of fixing them. We would like you to use this idea and interpret it as you will as you develop your game. Once you get your initial ideas and game concepts scoped out, we encourage you to integrate Backtrace into your game So you can ensure that any problems that you see after you build and deploy and test your game are quickly detected and allow your game developers to fix those errors. We'll share separate videos and guides that show you how to quickly get started creating a Backtrace instance for your team and integrating Backtrace into your Unity or Unreal project. It should take less than 15 minutes to get integrated, and I'm sure that you will see some value as you deploy your game and start to see some errors. So with that, I look forward to the next 48 hours, and I'll see you on the Discord channel. Game on.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Inclusivity Game Jam. My name is Mike Pappas, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Modulate, and I'm thrilled to be here talking to you about the importance of inclusivity in games. Now, there's obviously a lot of dimensions of inclusivity in game design, ranging from how we're displaying characters and the kinds of stories we're telling, to the kinds of gameplay methods that we implement to allow people to participate. But what I want to talk today about is what happens to games when they go social and the experiences different demographics and different kinds of people have when they try and participate in those online platforms. So as many of you probably already know, social interaction is increasingly core to online gaming. There's some really powerful stats in this space showing things like users who participate in chat being 300% more likely to continue playing the game, and that in different demographic groups, populations report that the ability to actually interact with people so much more powerfully is actually a really meaningful experience for them. And so, for instance, I have a study listed here that showed 80% of women playing online games actually are reporting that the ability to use voice chat in those games is really empowering to them. And that's even as 75% of those same women are reporting having to deal with some kind of toxicity. But the fact that voice chat and the ability to interact socially is so powerful doesn't counteract the fact that toxicity is still real online. And the more that you open up the door to social interactions, the worse that toxicity gets. So the 2019 Anti-Defamation League report showed that 73% of gamers have actually faced harassment in some way that was bad enough to quit or change their play style, and that number's gone up over the past year. We've also seen previous studies by folks like Jeffrey Lynn at Riot that have shown users who experience toxicity are 300% more likely to quit, in some sense canceling out those gains that you got from adding the social experience and getting that improved retention in the first place. So in order to build social experiences into our games, which are actually inclusive and safe and fun for everyone, we need to have a much deeper understanding of what toxicity and harassment looks like. And the first step to that is actually breaking down the many different dimensions that this kind of harm can happen across. So what we have here is a breakdown that Modulate has made heavy use of internally. Along the columns, we have different types of offenses that studios need to understand. So there are some types of offenses that are actually actively regulated today and have some kind of compliance obligations. There's others that pose real serious physical safety risks to the players. But there's a third category too, where it's maybe a little bit harder to immediately point to the really massive harm that happens, but that doesn't mean there isn't harm occurring. And in fact, if you talk to many gamers, you'll hear that things happening in this third column are actually incredibly painful and poignant experiences that prevent many demographics and many individual people from being able to participate wholly in those online experiences. Along the rows, we have different types of offenses. So the first row are utterances. These are the kinds of things that you can say in a text or a voice chat that basically independent of context are just unacceptable. Something like immediate sort of instantaneous hate speech or violent speech, or in a game that's supposed to be child friendly, the use of adult language. We might care a little bit less about the specific context of what drove you to utter that hate speech, and instead simply say, you shouldn't be using that kind of language here. The next category are behaviors, and these are things where you actually have to look at the whole context of the session in order to better understand the degree of harm that's being caused, and in some cases, whether it's real harm or whether it's something that might just be miscategorized. So, something like doxing or digging for someone's personal details, if you're actually very close with that person, they could be asking very innocuous questions about, hey, where do you live? But if it's someone that you don't know as well, that could actually be a really scary thing. And so we need to have a much better understanding of what's actually happening in this context. Who are these people that are interacting with each other? What's their relationship, in order to diagnose how bad it is? Similarly, something like harassment. There's some things that can be obvious hate speech, but when it comes to harassment, there can be much more insidious behaviors happening. Someone mentioning, hey, why don't you run over to the kitchen, in some context might not necessarily be someone trying to be adversarial to a woman or something like that. But there's a lot of cases where people will use something like go back to the kitchen as a way to harass someone that they don't think belongs playing games. And so understanding, the repetition of these kinds of things, the context, and again, the relationship between the players is really important. And then the final offense category that we have here are what we call relationships. And relationships go beyond an individual session of play. So this is something like sexually grooming a child, or trying to radicalize someone towards violence, or participating in a campaign to drive someone towards self-harm or suicide. These are incredibly severe offenses, and they're also incredibly rare, thankfully, but they do still happen. And in order to understand them, and especially in order to predict and identify them early enough to actually do something to solve the problem, we do need to be looking across multiple sessions of gameplay to better understand, are things trending in this very dangerous direction? And the unfortunate fact is, if you actually want to build a truly inclusive social experience online, relying on player reports to detect all these different kinds of offenses just isn't sufficient. In the utterances category, you do have occasional reports, but many players consider that behavior simply too common to bother reporting, or it rapidly becomes inconvenient to have to report it every time. Behaviors do get reported, but even then, statistics coming from groups like the Anti-Defamation League show that very few of these situations actually do get reported. I think something on the order of 70% of players actually have never reported any offense, and of those remaining 30%, they're only reporting a small number of the offenses they do witness. And unfortunately, the relationships category, which in some sense are the very most dangerous of all of these bad behaviors, these almost never get reported because they're never really being done around witnesses. And the victims in these cases, a child being groomed by a predator, they're not in a position where they even realize that they are a victim. So they're not in a position where they can place that report. So understanding that games that choose to provide this social component have an obligation to solve this problem and make sure that that is an inclusive experience for everyone means we have to go beyond player reports in designing how are we going to solve this actual problem and create a community of people who are actually treating each other properly. And the good news is there's a wide range of techniques that you can employ that go beyond simple player reports. And this matrix here attempts to kind of elucidate some of the different tactics that you might be interested in. So across the top, we see different entities that could be involved in moderating behavior. You could have the players moderate each other. You could have the community more broadly defining norms. You as the studio, of course, could be moderating behavior. And finally, you can rely on algorithms that can help you more quickly understand and detect bad behavior. Though, of course, we all recognize those algorithms may not be able to perfectly understand the nuance of these complex human interactions in all cases. On the other side, we have the question of what is being moderated. So you can ask players, for instance, to moderate themselves using reflection tools. Something that might say, hey, do you really want to post that in text chat? Read it again, think about, is that actually bad? Or even, at the end of the game, hey, how do you think you did? Were you a good citizen during this game? There have been some really powerful studies showing that these kinds of interventions are actually really powerful for getting players to behave more nicely and more respectfully in these online communities. You could also be talking about moderating actual live gameplay of others. So that could be, in the player's case, being able to actually mute or kick other participants in the game. Or maybe the studio, if it's a small enough community, could actually be listening to some of those high stakes games and noticing someone misbehaving and immediately kicking them out through some kind of live moderation system. Then you get down to reports, and we've talked about these already. These are a powerful tool, but they're not usually reliable enough, especially if you're just looking at player reports. And many studios have found that empowering community leaders to more proactively be providing these reports for them to go through, or relying on algorithms that can detect these things more frequently and make sure that things aren't falling through the cracks, even if a human listener needs to be brought in to understand that nuance, can be very powerful ways to expand your ability to use reports. And finally, the last category is trying to look at the pure ecosystem perspective. So when you think about what you as a studio can do at the ecosystem level, it's something like setting your actual code of conduct or building out reputation systems so that as a member of the community, everyone is necessarily incentivized to treat each other well because they want to have that positive reputation. Or again, going on to the algorithm side, you could have a more persistent moderation tool using some kind of artificial intelligence that again, may be looping in humans at some point in the process, but allows you to more consistently enforce that code of conduct and make sure that everyone who's coming onto your platform is all behaving in a way that conforms to your expectations. Now, I'll quickly mention that Modulate lives very much on that algorithm side. We are big believers in keeping a human in the loop. So everything that we build with our systems to help moderate voice chat in particular are designed to make sure that we're making all the necessary context available to your actual moderation team so that they can provide additional insight as to whether the system might be missing something, which not only helps us avoid false positives and punishing someone who didn't deserve it, but can be used to continue to train and reinforce the AI system to make it better and better. But it's really important to call out that this is still only one piece of the puzzle. And we very much understand and want to work with studios who recognize that and are looking at how can we build something that's a really comprehensive solution to these kinds of problems of toxicity and exclusivity. And they're interested in looking at Modulate as a piece of that story that we can help them design. Anyway, enough of that plug. A little quick wrap up here on what you need to do if you really do want to build a safe community. It can't just be, build it and hope for the best. Bad behavior will happen if you're not actively planning for it. So some of those simple steps that you can take are, first of all, start with a code of conduct. Even before you start building the gameplay, know what kind of community you're looking to cultivate and build everything around the game in a way that's going to reinforce that kind of respect that you want players to be showing to each other. Organize matches and spoils to actually reward good behavior as well. Don't just punish bad. First of all, just trying to ban bad people, especially in the free-to-play ecosystem that many games live in today, simply doesn't work. And you end up with those people coming back and teaching new players bad behaviors. But even more so, players just respond really well to being shown that they're participating and they're actually being a good citizen and getting that kind of positive feedback. So giving them an opportunity to feel that reinforcement can be a really powerful way to make sure that your players are participating and working with you to build that richer community. And finally, as I've alluded to before, you can't just wait for misbehavior to be escalated to you. You have to actively be thinking about how are you going to shape the community in a way that it never happens, or else, or really, how are you going to detect when it is happening without relying on the victims to be the one to bring that information to your attention. So thank you again for listening. I'm really excited to see what everyone builds during the game jam here today. And if you're interested in talking more about inclusivity in games in general, and especially what that looks like as part of the social landscape for games, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email's in the slide below.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me at your Inclusion Game Jam. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Kim Schatzer. I am Managing Director of Onward Play. We are a video game and VR and esports staffing agency nationwide as well as in Canada. And we are a division of Onward Search, which is a tech, marketing, digital design staffing agency nationwide. Been in the business for over 15 years. Now, what's so exciting about what we get to do at Onward Play is we are working with some of the top game studios, AAA, PC, console, mobile, mid-level game studios that are growing, independent game studios, publishers, indies, startups, and we're also working with esports leagues and teams and all of the companies that service the esports industry, as well as VR and AR. So our jobs are pretty cool. We are talking to hiring managers all day long about what their needs are in gaming and what their next IP is going to be and how they're building it and what kind of team they need to build it and what the audience and the demographic is asking for versus what they have to design and build. So that's an exciting portion of what we do. And then the other fun half of it is that we're talking to super talented, high-level game industry veterans and candidates that are just maybe getting into gaming, and we're helping them match to the best studio that fits their background and their skill set and their needs. So it's a fun place to be for our game recruiters, and also on the client side, it's really cool. And why I say it's cool is because we get to see in a 1,000-foot view of what the industry looks like, because we are seeing all the puzzle pieces moving and what the trends are and patterns and hiring and what the landscape is with new IPs getting built and different nuances of what each studio does to build their game or define their team, which is a wonderful place to be as a staffing partner to these game studios. So I want to talk about diversity and inclusion in the game industry. And I will say this topic has been researched and written about and spoken about a lot. So I'm going to focus more on the hiring side and actually the internal workings of the game studio. But firstly, about entertainment and games as an entertainment is, there are just so many games out there where the demographic of people buying the game are not represented at the actual game studio. And that's the discrepancy that, as a staffing partner who cares a lot about diversity and inclusion, what we try to help our studios with. There's so much data out there that the audience and the players and the fans and the loyalists for these games, they want to see themselves inside the game. They want more relevancy in the game. They want to see more underrepresented faces on the cover art. And, they want to see that the, kids or adults buying these games get that sense of belonging while they're playing, because they're investing so many hours and so much love into the games that they do play. So it's not even just about let's put more Black and Latino and Indian, faces and voices and cultures inside these games. That's really important too. But what's also important is, there aren't enough mothers depicted in games. And isn't that silly? Because the majority of mobile gamers are actually women. So there's just such a need with all these underrepresented communities in the game industry to get represented. Now, my advice to game developers that are in the gaming industry is to really look at the research of women players, look at the research of underrepresented community players. They are now starting to play in moments. We're seeing this trend of TikToks and short reel videos and short clips and quotes instead of these long, videos that you'd watch or long episodes that you watch. Things are shortening, right? Because our attention span's shortened and we want to move on to the next thing fast. It's happening in gaming too, and especially on the women's side. Maybe the woman that's playing a game is juggling kids and a job and extracurriculars, and they just have a couple moments or phrases or little fragments and bits of time to execute and play on the game on their phone. So it's no longer the days of maybe sitting on a couch playing for 3 hours intensely. It's about creating these little fun game moments for those types of players. So little examples like that are how you kind of leverage the different demographics playing a game and look at it through like an emotional lens, an emotional frame, and saying, how should I design the gameplay so it makes sense for all people playing the game, not just white men playing the game. Now, I want to speak to diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to a game studio, since that's what I see. I'm putting together teams that build new IPs or that are maintaining existing games. There are a lot of game studios right now that are preaching diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's Black Lives Matter posts on their social media, so that's great. There's diversity inclusion pages getting added to their corporate websites. They're hiring, directors of HR and directors of diversity inclusion or employee success to improve the culture and ethos at their game studio, which is great. Their CEOs releasing statements about their feelings on diversity and how it's mission critical and they don't stand for any abuse or attacks. All of that is wonderful. But where I see the disconnect as a staffing partner with some of these game studios is that, what are these game studios doing to support the funnel of underrepresented communities, getting access to STEM and coding classes from an early age, or in high school or in college? And what are they doing to also support the funnel of maybe putting their open jobs in front of HBCUs, maybe targeting graduating classes from those programs or the alumni from those programs? There's still a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion, but we're not seeing enough action to it. And I think, Pride Month is an example. Right now it's June, it's Pride Month, and we're seeing every studio is now changing their logo to rainbow. Okay, that's great. That's wonderful. It's good they show support. And on the flip side, what's happening in the LGBTQ community is they're saying, all right, so it's nice that you did a rainbow flag on your logo, but there's no openly gay players in any of the 12 games that your studio built. And there's no lead characters with any open gay stories. So it's like, are we really getting represented, or is it just a lot of talk and show and marketing? So that's what I'm here to do, is be a disruptor in the industry and help my studio clients find the right candidates that can, bring new voices and ages and, faces and backgrounds and cultures and perspectives and technologies into a game so they're built more inclusively. So another request I get a lot from studios is, here are my open positions. We're having a hard time filling this DevOps role or this gameplay engineer or this Unreal developer. Help me fill it, but we need AAA only. And even my indie and small studios will say, we really prefer someone with AAA. And the problem with that is that we're recycling the same candidates over and over, which historically, as we know, the percentages of diversity inclusion candidates inside the gaming community is much lower. Just like in tech, it's lower than maybe some other industries out there. And we, everyone in the world right now is working to improve this problem. It's a big hot topic of 2020 and 2021. So I'm here saying, all right, well, we're not letting new people in because we're saying AAA only, but your website has, logos for every new national holiday of the month, and you're putting out all these posts about D&I, and you said that you're making a donation to this great coding nonprofit for kids. But what are you doing when it comes to hiring the people that are building these games that those kids are playing, or that those, underrepresented community adults are playing? So that's where I'm trying to, kind of bridge the gap and the disconnect with game studios and how they staff up their teams. So I want to jump into a couple commonly asked questions. As my game recruiting team knows, we get a ton of questions every day from people in the industry wondering, how do I get into the industry, or what do I do, or how do I stand out, and how do I level up? And I just want to go through some of our best practices that we tell our candidates about. So the first question is, how do I show hiring managers that I value and or represent diversity on my resume without it being, maybe too much or too little? So obvious things when it comes to this, you want to highlight who you are. So next to your name, it's good to put she, her, or he, his, or them, they, whatever your pronouns are that you're using. I think that's important to add in there. Some people like to put their resume with a little, picture of themselves in the top corner. That's fine too. I think a link to your LinkedIn is great as well, so they can see what types of groups you follow and your background of your schooling and what mutual connections you have with them and all those other good tidbits that LinkedIn will give you. But I always tell people, it's important to join organizations like IGDA, like the LinkedIn gaming diversity groups, like the meetup.com gaming groups and the Facebook diversity groups in gaming. There's so many of these little pockets of great communities of gaming professionals, even in Slack public gaming developer channels and Discord. I mean, I want people to be a part of the conversation, join the webinars, go to the forums, be around your peers that are in those communities. communities and show that you're an ally. I tell people, write on your resume if you are part of Latinos in gaming, and even if you're not Latino, but you're part of the Discord and you participate and you're an ally for that community, and you know people in that community and you attend their webinars and you support their cause, write that on your resume. Even if it's not a hard skill, like here are my 5 core technologies that I'm strong at. It's okay to list those soft skills or those associations or those groups that you participate in, because that will really show them that you're immersed in different communities and that you care about other communities. My last question I'm going to tackle for you guys is, how do I show hiring managers that I'm inclusive in the workplace during an interview? So, as far as how you show them how you're inclusive in the workplace or examples from your past, it's really about your ability to be a storyteller. So there's a lot of times when engineers or programmers, developers, they might get an introverted stereotype on them. But I want everyone to be the best storytellers when they go into that hiring process and they're in that interview call. It's important on an interview that you're not just speaking about the hard skills and technologies of, oh, I have 5 years with C# and I have 5 years with Unreal Engine. And instead of just talking about the hard skills that you have, you want to highlight the soft skills, but do it in a way that tells a story. So give the hiring manager a use case. So at my last company, what I did was I saw success because I collaborated with my team on a project, and I could have just taken the project myself, but I ended up asking a couple mentors and people on my team, junior people, more opinions about how to complete this problem that I was trying to solve. And when I did that, yes, it maybe took me an extra couple of hours because I had to ask all these people, but what I did was I included more voices and opinions and thoughts on that project, and it ended up being more successful because I did that. So it's just showing a hiring manager how you think outside the box and expand your horizons to include others in the conversation. It's not just about, oh, I joined the diversity inclusion committee at my last studio. That's not always the answer they look for. It's other ways that you bring people in so they can see your thought process and how you collaborate. So I really appreciate everybody's time today. It was so fun meeting with you all. Good luck on the game jam. I hope you have a great time working together, doing some teamwork to come up with some fun stuff. If you or anyone you know is looking for a job in gaming or hiring, please visit www.onwardplay.com and give us a shout. Once again, I'm Kim Schatzer, and I will see you guys later. Bye.
Those were both wonderful talks. It was great to hear about how important inclusivity is, both within the game, game playing audience, within the community, as well as how it can work well internally and help your career. But next we have Jason Davis, the VP of Product Management at Backtrace, to help answer any questions that you may have about this game jam, about Backtrace, and perhaps even about this brand new theme, Find It, Fix It. Jason, welcome.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks, everyone, for joining us again. Definitely the floor is open for any questions you have. Happy to help you set up Backtrace where we can and support you in the jam.
So actually, I have a question. I have a history in product management myself, and I would love to hear what was the inspiration for creating Backtrace? Like, where did you see the needs of developers being? What really motivated the tool to become what it is today?
Sure. How long we have? I'll try and do it in a brief moment, a brief minute or so. So short history of the company. We are a 7-year-old technology startup still. The initial problem that the founders were trying to solve when we created Backtrace was to make it easier to detect and resolve bugs that are bugs and crashes that are occurring across a wide vast of machines that are deployed essentially in the cloud. The old product that we created was to better debug Linux servers. We took the same technology and applied it to other platforms like PC, web, and mobile, so that no matter where the software is running, we can collect the errors very efficiently and submit them to a homegrown, custom designed database that allows you to really query this data just like you would any other BI data. So the real kind of reason for creating Backtrace was that the developers were having a real problem detecting when they had an issue that was causing users or players to be impacted. And that process took an hour, if not more, just to get a sense of how many people are impacted. And then the ability to solve that problem by digging into the stack trace, the environment, the configurations, and see, is this a one-time thing? Is this a common thing? What are the trends? That was difficult to do. So Backtrace was really created to shorten that process by bringing as much automation to the process as possible.
And from my understanding, it takes less than an hour to integrate Backtrace into commonly used engines and projects. Is that right?
Yes, our SDK is very simple to use. We're supporting some folks right now on the Discord channels. Integration with Unity, pretty simple, a UPM library that can be downloaded, integrated, and started in about 15 minutes. Unreal, just a configuration change of some ini files and making sure that the Unreal Engine picks up those files and uses those locations to send us data.
Really interesting. So I know you probably can't talk about specific clients, but was there any really surprising server issues or information that any of your clients have found through the use of Backtrace?
Yeah, I'm getting lots of stories these days. We, as I mentioned, started off a little bit more in the server space. So our first few years in gaming were more focused on PC and console games, and more recently in the mobile space. I'm hearing a lot of people on mobile telling us that they have problems and crashes they can't identify on third-party libraries. These cause problems for their games, and they look to solutions like Backtrace, not only Backtrace, but others, to try and solve those problems. They're coming to me now and telling me that these other solutions don't give them accurate enough call stacks. The stack traces and the frames and the information that they get from other solutions, especially on mobile native crashes, just isn't good enough. And that's where our technology really shines. So we're hearing from folks often now that the hangs and problems that they couldn't really solve with other solutions are much easier with Backtrace because we're getting them more of the data that they need.
That's really great to hear. And I'm not sure if all of our viewers understand this right now, but back-end development in games, it can be extremely difficult because you're trying to figure out, keeping, how to handle packets, making sure that you're handling packet loss properly. And I would say that back-end engineers are some of the most in-demand engineers within game development. So the fact that you're able to cater to them and to empower them to be even more efficient is probably making a lot of companies really happy about saving their time since they're such a precious resource.
Yeah, definitely. The stories that I love to hear are when customers tell us they release their game and they've already got their top 10 bugs to fix for their first patch, which is coming out in 2 weeks. And then I look at the change log of the patch and I see the stuff that they're fixing. It's really satisfying. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. And too often we see bugs that go for months and months unfixed because it can be really hard to identify that call stack and figure out exactly what they're being caused by. So the theme for this jam is obviously inspired by Backtrace's tool set, Find It, Fix It. Do you have any ideas to inspire the people who are entering this jam into how to further expand on that Find It, Fix It theme?
When I heard the theme, the idea of a few different random ideas came in mind. Anything from it's a dark space and I don't know what's around, so how do I get a sense of what's there and how there's something maybe that's got to be fixed? How do I explore a space and find something? I've also thought about identifying puzzles and figuring out where there's something wrong in order to pass through this puzzle to get to the next level. Maybe having different types of problems and tools to choose from and see which ones match to make them to make things fix. I think there's a lot of interesting things you can do with the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really fun theme. I love those themes that can be interpreted in multiple ways because it really helps you spark creativity, but gives you a lot of freedom at the same time still. Have you ever participated in a game jam?
I personally have not. Some of our product managers have previous game jams, the Game Maker Toolkit Jam. I personally have not, but I'm very excited to see what what type of things we can get created in the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I imagine that there's going to be a lot of creativity and a lot of just really interesting ideas that are going to inspire others. That's what I think game jams are best at doing, inspiring yourself, the people you work with, and the other people that are participating in the jam, because it's a perfect way to brainstorm initial ideas.
Yeah.
Great. So, in regards to integrating Backtrace, that's one of the requirements for this game jam in order for their games to be submitted. Do you have any recommendations where people should go to for resources if they're finding any difficulty with that integration?
Yeah, so definitely use the Discord channel, the Backtrace Discord site. I'll be on there for the next few hours to give some support. Other than that, over the weekend, I'll continue to check in on there, and we have some resources if we need to help out. Our getting started guides should be pretty straightforward. There should be some videos as well that take you through step by step, but we'll definitely be monitoring the channel, the Discord for support. If you create your instance and you use the support button, that may not be staffed over the weekend, but it's another thing that I'll be looking into. So definitely ask for help on the Discord channels. We will be there to assist where we can. And the Backtrace part, really, it's supposed to be there so you get exposure to it. Hopefully it helps you fix problems that you have, but we don't want it taking up the majority of your time, obviously. It's important to have a wonderful game created here. So we'll support you where we can and figure out if there are problems, how to work through them.
Absolutely. It's really great that you're staying online during the weekend to assist with that. And speaking of assistance on the game development side in general, if you viewers have any, you jammers have any questions, you can also refer to the IGDA Discord with wonderful advice channel, a development help channel. So if you have any questions on getting Unity to behave the way that you were expecting, if you're looking for any art advice or anything like that, feel free to make use of our resources, because we're really here to support you as well. And it's quite an honor to be doing this jam with this, such an interesting topic and such an important topic as well with Backtrace. It's been truly wonderful. So we're almost out of time here. I wanted to double check if chat has any other questions. Feel free to throw them in. But the one question that I had is, if someone is looking to integrate Backtrace, do you have a recommendation of when they should start considering that for their project? Is it fine to do it anytime? Do you recommend starting at the beginning, or do you have any preference on that?
Yeah, I like to say as soon as the code leaves your desktop, right, as soon as you bundle it and package it and provide it to someone else, Backtrace becomes useful. We see a lot of folks using us as soon as they go to play tests, and even earlier in like friends and family tests. Those are the best times to make sure we're there, because you're capturing value at that point. We have other studios now where Backtrace is one of the first tools they integrate. So as they're doing their CI builds, even nightly, they're already starting to capture errors. So as early as possible, by gameplay tests are usually the time when we get a spike of folks starting to look at incorporating the tool.
Absolutely. It sounds like the earlier you have it integrated, the easier it is for your engineering team to make sure they're keeping track of all those potential issues. That's great to know. And then finally, if someone is looking to determine if Backtrace is going to be valuable for integration, even if they're a small indie, do you have just as much support for those smaller teams as the larger ones?
Yes, we are. One of our mantras is to try and not really care too much about the size of a studio. We want every game developer, no matter size of studio, be it indie developer, indie studio, small, medium, large studio. We have this support there for you. And Backtrace is free to use for single developers, up to 25,000 monthly errors, free forever. So that account that you're creating here, you can keep using for your other projects. And then we have plans that grow as utilization grows. Yeah, and then a nice, a community of individuals through through IGDA and through this game jam. You might see the word Breakpoint mentioned. Breakpoint is our community of game developers who are really focused on and interested in stability, quality, and performance diagnostics. So we really look to surround ourselves with folks like that and support people in the community that way.
Speaking of Breakpoint and that community, you actually earlier this year had a wonderful conference with a lot of great speakers. I believe those talks are still available online. Is that correct?
They are, and we've been promoting some of them for some additional traffic recently. It's been great. Not only vendors who participated, folks like NVIDIA who talked about some of their performance diagnostic tools, a smaller startup, much like Backtrace, called Game Driver, who did automated testing tools. We also had customers and users, studio called Cryptic Studios, part of Perfect World, who use Backtrace for all of their PC games. And they talked about mini dump analysis. We had other customers talking about their approach to QA and how QA and play tests kind of go hand in hand, and different ways to kind of leverage both together, both your professional QA teams and your play testers. So really a diverse kind of set of talks that really focused again around stability, quality, and performance, and vendors, customers, etc. Really good stuff to continue to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, please check that out if you're interested in those topics. Those are super valuable talks. I was able to watch some of them, and they're really high quality, really well done.
And your talk, of course, Renee. I really enjoyed that too.
Thank you. Yes, I did talk as well. I guess I'm sort of tooting my own horn here a bit, but I certainly had a lot of fun at that event. Well, we're out of time here. Jason, thank you so much for chatting with us and answering all these questions. It was great to hear a bit more insight about the Backtrace toolset, about your ideas on the Game Jam theme, and about Breakpoint.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Renee. Thanks everybody again for participating this week.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. That's the end of this. We wish you the best of luck on your Game Jam entries. I hope that whoever wins that PS5 is going to be so happy with it, because I'm going to be super jealous. I don't have one yet. And yeah, good luck this weekend. And if you need anything at all, look to the resources that we've provided for you. We're here to help.